And then let me pull up the PowerPoint. Oh, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to show you some things. So I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint. Thank you for leading that prayer, Reagan. We're going to talk about prospecting today and how to harvest the prospects, the people that the Lord has put into our pathway by his good providential care. And one of the points that I'm going to make about today's session is that the game has really changed since I became a full-time preacher some 40 something years ago. And I've done a lot of door knocking, and I don't exactly highly recommend that anymore. I know that when Jack Dent first became a realtor, he did a lot of door to door. And in fact, I have very little to show for door knocking over the years, even at the best of times. But I think post COVID, door knocking is not a good idea right now. I would explore many other methodologies besides that. There was a time when I was a young man, I was taking some part-time classes at Cal State Fullerton University in Southern California, preaching for a large, bustling church of Tustin in Orange County, California. We had about 250 and pulled on our network of members from other surrounding congregations in Orange County. There were several students at Cal State Fullerton. I was part-time, and we had enough for a quorum of a small group, and then set up a table in the middle of the campus, got permission to do that, passed out flyers. We had them professionally done by one of our members who did that for a living. And we were written up several times by the local campus newspaper, Cal State Fullerton, got several front page articles and pictures. And there were a couple of people who attended that class that we did once a week on campus, got permission to go on campus with it. A couple of people that were baptized that were not Christians when we first started. And so I thought that that was a successful venture. One of those young men worked with a neighbor who was a member of the church, and he eventually became a gospel preacher and married another preacher's daughter. And Brent Forsyth is his name. Done many other things over the years, some of which I think still might work, some of which might not work. But here's some cards from the Vestavia Church of Christ in Alabama. They had a campaign for, I think, a VBS or a children's Bible class program a number of years ago. So they had placards and yard signs that corresponded with these little cards that they would hand out. He loves good books. Can we suggest one? He counts by twos, just like Noah. And you have information about the event on the backside. He knows his ABCs. How about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? He remembers everything. We're counting on it. Why? His favorite word. Perfect age for answers. And so they had a successful campaign. We've done Where is Your Life Headed? With an advertisement for our Ecclesiastes class. Sick of entertainment-driven churches? Did you know that there is a genuine New Testament church in your community? And so we're obviously targeting different groups of people with those kinds of campaigns. We had a similar card some years ago when I first arrived in Santa Clara. This may have been December 2007 or 8. And we decided, at a time of year when people are not thinking evangelism, we decided to devote an entire service late December to the theme, Why Did My Savior Come to Earth? And we sang that song. I preached a sermon on the theme. All the classes in the building were on that theme, and we had a bunch of visitors. We did a special event 3 years ago on how we got the Bible, had about 300 visitors, about 150 of which were not members of Churches of Christ. And so I'm a big believer in special events. I'm a big believer in flashy flyers, cards, materials, business cards, whatever, along with digital evangelism, social media, and all of which comes together to advertise a special event. Let me share the PowerPoint for today. In lesson 1, we talked about the whole idea of how an evangelist approaches this work as opposed to every other member. There's some similarities and common denominators, but an evangelist also has to think about teaching and preaching and motivating a congregation and planning for special events and pulling all the disparate elements together. Lesson number 2, we talked about evangelistic motivation, and I was looking at some of my folders today. I would say that anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 of all the sermons I've taught on this have to do with the motivational side of things, because I really believe people have to be motivated to overcome all the obstacles to actually get out and do it, and that the nuts and bolts are for those who are highly motivated. And if in the absence of motivation, all the nuts and bolts in the world will not produce dramatic results. And then last time we talked a little bit about building a network so that you're able to draw from good materials that are available, good ideas, sharing of good ideas. There are evangelists that are doing very well with different aspects of evangelism across the country. Pick their brain, find out what works, what doesn't, and try some of those areas. And most of all, go to God in prayer. We talked about different elements of the role of prayer in evangelism last time. So in this present lesson, we want to look at the idea of prospecting, and particularly prospecting with the idea of how to go about increasing the number of people that you have to work with on the front end of things. And so I don't know why this is not okay. Evangelism training number 4. Okay, Jesus uses the harvest metaphor multiple times. Luke 10, verse 2, he said to them, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Or John 4:35, "Do you not say there are yet 4 months? Then comes the harvest. Look, I tell you, lift up your eyes and see that the fields are white for harvest." And so, where is he when he makes that last statement in John chapter 4?
He's in Samaria.
Yeah, he's just talked about to the woman at the well of Sychar in Samaria. The disciples have gone to buy food. They've come back. They're shocked that he's talking to a woman who is a Samaritan and a sinner and a woman. And he tells them, "Do you not say there are yet 4 months? Then comes the harvest. Look, lift up your eyes and see that the fields are white for harvest." Right here in Samaria, there's opportunity if you just open up your eyes to see it for what it really is. I think it's a huge mistake, and I think one of the shortcomings that we may have in this area is that we tend to target potential demographics, and we may have a huge blind spot with people that are not even on our radar screen. If you would have told me in 2007, when I first came to Santa Clara, that around the 2020 period, you would baptize around 3 people who have Iranian Muslim backgrounds, I would have said, I think you might be crazy. That would not necessarily be the demographic that I would say is number one on my list. But I'll tell you something. I'm hearing anecdotal evidence that even in Iran, professed Christianity is growing like wildfire. Even in the midst of intense persecution and the threat of potential execution, professed Christians are taking their lives into their hands and carefully and wisely trying to spread the word among those who are not Christians. So we are foolish to a fault if we eliminate entire demographics of people, and it may well be that they're the whitest for harvest, so to speak. So the question we want to really ask ourselves today is how can we harvest prospects? Where do we find them? How can we increase our chances of finding them? Is it really true that they are plentiful? Are we looking in the right places? And before we get to this chart, I pulled some of the sermons I've preached in the last few years, trying to give nuts and bolts help to my brethren. One is titled, "What Can I Do?" Another is titled, "Answering Unbelievers' Objections." Yet another one, "Reaching Out to Biblically Illiterate Unbelievers." Another one, "Conversation Starters." Another one, "How to Invite." Another one called "Visitor Flow." Another one, "How to Reach the Lost." Another one, "Evangelism in Early Christianity." Another one, "Preparing for Visitor Day." Another one, "Making Evangelism Fun." Another one, "Reasons for Not Evangelizing People You Know?" Question mark. Another one, "Getting Prospects for Evangelism." Another one, "Harvesting for Jesus." Another one, "Digital Evangelism." Another one, "Evangelism as a Lifestyle." That's just a few lessons, and I preached all of those in Santa Clara. And so I regularly think about this subject, and I've done a lot of teaching on it over the years. And this is just a smattering of the sermons I have on this particular subject. And so part of finding prospects is when preparation and opportunity meet, when you're praying fervently and you're looking for opportunities in the Lord to open up those doors of opportunity. And so we want to ask questions. And I've kind of updated a few things for this particular lesson. What would I do in 2022 or 2023, as the case may be? On lesson one, we looked at the big picture from an evangelist point of view. As you work backward from the bottom to the top of the chart, are you experiencing success and enthusiasm as a consequence of your evangelistic efforts? That may depend upon whether you're really baptizing anybody and whether anybody's truly converting, which may depend upon whether you have hot prospects who are knocking at that door of conversion, which depends upon largely whether you have anything going in the way of classes with non-Christians, which depends largely on whether you're generating prospects and finding prospects with whom to begin this encounter. And so if you don't have adequate prospects, the dominoes, the whole chain is going to break down. So you have to analyze whether you're ready to receive prospects and whether the church is ready and whether you're extending sufficient numbers of invitations and outreach efforts. Is the initial follow-up good? Do you have a good teaching program once you put them in that pipeline? Do you have good closing admonitions to move people from the faith building process to the point of conversion? And do you have a track record where success breeds success? So, right off the bat, I think both in terms of the evangelist and the people that he trains, teaches, and motivates, we have to be the right person at the right place at the right time, and we have to encourage our brothers and sisters in Christ to do the same. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So it's out of the salt shaker and into the world. It's putting that light, taking it from out from under the bushel and putting it on the lampstand. If other people do not see something of what we're trying to be and trying to do, then we will largely go unnoticed, and the gospel may well go unnoticed. Be the right person in the right place at the right time. Again, John 1, one of the two who heard John speak and followed Jesus was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ. He brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, the son of John. You shall be called Cephas," which means Peter or rock. And in verse 23, John 1, the next day Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now, Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nathanael said to him, "Can any good thing come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." You have personal invitations going out, people bringing other people to Jesus. Come and see. We have found the one that we're looking for. You can be the right person in the right place at the right time. So how do you look for prospects? Much of this is going to be from a preacher's point of view, but you're going to present a lot of this to your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. Where do you find souls to teach? And the answer is everywhere. Case in point, and I've got a book that I did in the early 2000s, Evangelism Toolbox. It's out of print now, but I have a whole page on, do you know anybody who needs the gospel? And the whole page talks about people whom you respect, people who need your help. And it talks about relatives, mail carriers, newspaper deliverers, dentists, hygienists, physicians, florists, lawyers, insurance agents, accountants, congressional representatives, pharmacists, veterinarians, optometrists, doctors, etc. People who sold you your house, your car, your tires, your television, your fishing license, your tie, your shoes, your business cards, your wedding rings, your eyeglasses, your vacuum cleaner, etc., etc. Do you know someone who lives across the street in your spouse's, someone who is your spouse's barber, hairdresser? someone who teaches your children at school, someone who is best man, usher, maid of honor, bridesmaid, etc., someone who is the purchasing agent where you work, someone who is the finance director at school, someone who goes hunting or fishing with you, someone who is your Army or Navy buddy, the architect who drew up your house plan, someone who goes bowling with you. We don't do that much anymore. Um, Someone who is president of the PTA, your spouse's classmate in college, someone you met camping, the credit manager at your bank. And again, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And someone says, well, I just don't know anyone. Really? You don't know anyone? Are you a hermit? Are you a desert rat? You don't know anyone. There's not too many people who don't know anyone. So most of us know personal friends, relatives, neighbors, people with whom we do business, parents of your children's friends. It could be an insurance agent, a realtor, a doctor, a dental hygienist, a pharmacist, a veterinarian, a banker, a barber, a waitress, other parents connected to your child's sports team, your auto mechanic, the checkout clerk you often see at the grocery store. And that's just for starters. We know the name of our mail carrier. Her name is Marlene, and occasionally Andrea leaves her goodies. Like on a really hot day, she might leave her something cool to cool off, or a piece of fruit from our lemon tree or orange tree, or some little present or goodie. And for some reason, we usually get our mail. Uh, but more important than that, there's going to be a time and place where we have opportunity to leave something else, maybe an invitation to a venue that can change her life. Every lost soul is fair game. Every single lost soul is fair game. Don't discount anybody who is lost. Now, this really speaks to preachers, but I think in a sense, it speaks to all Christians. Develop multiple approaches to prospecting. Just like investing, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You need to develop multiple pipelines. And if you have one pipeline that is really delivering, don't depend entirely on it, because if it happens to dry up, you need other pipelines. Digital evangelism. Cards and flyers. I showed you a few. Nurture personal relationships with people. Start a meetup group and advertise that through meetup.com. When advertising on social media, add value-added free stuff or offer it to those who might be interested. There's a chance that we change our digital evangelism people that we're working with. And we've talked to a new guy that is a huge believer in automated email follow-up. And so one of the huge things that he believes in, and I believe in it too, because I've studied marketing to a degree, is you dangle a lot of carrots, you put out a lot of social media promotional material. People will click on that and they'll go to a landing page where they get free stuff. It may be a free article if they sign up, or a free series of articles on something of interest to them. It may be what the Bible says about how to solve family problems, or what the Bible says about the end times and the book of Revelation, uh, something like that. Something that people might have a built-in interest in, and then They sign up for it on the landing page, and there might be a permission statement to send them an occasional follow-up email, maybe once a week, something like that. And that essentially becomes an opt-in list. And you build that list into hundreds and then eventually thousands of people. And you follow up on a regular basis. You develop a welcome team in church for honored guests and even a welcome station. And there's all kinds of ideas that correlate with that. You follow up all leads, and especially leads of people that have visited church assemblies or church-sponsored Bible classes. They are VIP. They're your honored guests. You want to follow those people up expeditiously. Emails, phone calls, just to follow up, friendly card, whatever it may be. And along these lines, as you're developing these various pipelines, you want to develop some good associated tools. A very, very good website is a must. Business cards, not only for you, but also for members. A general business card for members to hand out. We need to develop some new ones. We had some a good long while ago, but have very few of those left, if any. Postcards, we did shopping bags a few years ago. Doesn't have to be something like that, but we put Bread of Life on it and put the church's name and logo and gave them out for free to people. Could be something more creative or something more practical, but could be a tract quality website. By the way, if you hand out tracts or if you have a tract rack, make sure your address information is on those tracts. Quality website, church Facebook page, targeted special events with promo ads, such as our How We Got the Bible Museum Day. But putting all these tools together, tools that increase visibility and member involvement, almost every member of the church was involved on our visitor day. Almost every single member. And if you can get near 100% participation of buy-in and involvement of members in a coordinated activity, then their interest and investment in making it work is going to be sky high. And you're probably going to have more visitors invited to that event because of that, if for no other reason. And you'll also have more people invested in greeting those visitors and following up with those visitors as a consequence of having a greater percentage of the church membership involved in the event. Disadvantages for preachers: we often work alone or with other preachers or with our brothers and sisters in Christ. So we don't have a traditional workplace where we rub shoulders day after day after day with non-Christians on the job. We have an additional hurdle to overcome in that when people find out that we're preachers, they sometimes want to avoid us like the plague. How do we overcome some of those hurdles? Suggestion number one is piggyback on the contacts of other members. I cannot tell you how many classes that I've taught where other people were the Andrew or the Philip, bringing someone so that I could teach them and introduce them to Jesus. Develop relationships with your children's friends' parents. I've had a lot of good opportunities that have grown out of that when my kids were young. Don't have that avenue anymore. And it's amazing how fast it breezes by. Those kids grow up fast, but while you've got them under your roof, develop relationships with your children's friends' parents. Find a hobby or join a group of people with a common interest. There are thousands of things that you could do. Um, plant seeds all the time. Ask the right questions. The tactics book comes to mind. Some of you are aware of that. Work things, spiritual things into your conversations, just like Jesus did. Give me a drink, all of a sudden becomes a discussion for living water. Make a recommendation. You know, we recommend stores, we recommend hairstylists, we recommend restaurants, we recommend films, movies, books, we recommend vacation spots. Why can't we recommend the most important thing in life? You know what? We're having this great class on Tuesday nights that would really be helpful, I think, to your family life issues, your family problems. I think it would really be a benefit to you. Or the preacher at church is going to be preaching a sermon this next Sunday that would really help answer this question that you have. And just recommend. When you recommend, you're not shoving anything down somebody's throat. You may even ask permission. May I make a recommendation? And then they actually give you permission to make the recommendation. And then you go forward with it. Extend an invitation and so on. Take a class offered by the city, the local community college, down at the senior center, as the case may be for me. Build a relationship with church visitors. I believe that visitors to existing church venues are your number one priority in follow-up for prospects. You have absolutely got to collect information whenever possible. Don't let them slip through the cracks. Develop a greeter team. Make sure the greeter team is trained to get the visitor cards so that if people do not wish to remain incognito and are willing to give you that information, then you've got at least a basis for a mild follow-up. But they have an existing built-in interest, or they wouldn't be there. And so they're some of your hottest prospects. And I'm going to add one other thing to this list, and it is don't forget to teach parents that their best prospects are the little ones living under their own roof. And you can go out and try to convert the world, and if you're not working on your own children, you may be missing your very best prospects. And don't automatically take those prospects for granted. They need to be taught, they need to be encouraged, they need to be steered in the right direction. And you as a preacher need to pay attention to some of those little ones. Love people. The old adage, people won't care how much you know until they know how much you care, is really true in this area. They don't care what you know about the Bible if you don't care about them. In a world full of hurtful evils, love draws people like a powerful magnet. Show genuine interest in others and depend on God to open doors, and you will find people to teach. In fact, you ought to have plenty of people to teach if you show enough genuine interest in other people. Be a good Samaritan who will practice the golden rule. Give and you will receive. And let me make a couple of specific suggestions. It may be giving in terms of bringing a cake or a pie to your neighbor. That isn't done very often anymore. It's an unusual act of kindness these days. I'll tell on Talon here. I don't want to embarrass him, but we're teaching Fareed on Sunday afternoons. And Fareed invited or saw Talon, I guess, at the gym, and invited Talon to go rock climbing. And since then, I've heard him invite Talon 2 or 3 more times to go rock climbing. And I think Talon's okay going rock climbing, but even if Talon doesn't want to go rock climbing, he tries to go with Fareed. And then they got Samuel going rock climbing once in a blue moon also. And so now Fareed has some Christians climbing with him. Personally, I don't want to go rock climbing, but I guess that if it came down to that, I would. But Talon is doing it, and he's bridged the gap simply because he's accepted the invitation to go with Fareed rock climbing. And what that does speaks volumes in terms of, I want to be with you, I want to be your friend, and I really care about you, even if it means doing something else here. Then when we open up the Bible together, this is the most important thing in my life, and I want to share that with you. You share rock climbing with you, I'll share the Bible with you. So you make personal investments in people. Be a friend. Remove obstacles. To the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all people, that I might by all means save some. And Paul talks about the cultural differences between Jews and Gentiles in the context there. I have taken off my shoes in homes of East Asians. Before, it was customary to take off shoes. Now people take off their shoes when they come to our house. But you try to adapt to local customs, particularly when you're in a melting pot full of cultures. Find some common ground and speak the cultural language of your prospects as best you can. That may involve saying ni hao ma in Mandarin, how are you? Or she she, thank you. Or que pasa in Spanish. And I've known a lot of people that have learned just a word or two in another language, and they said it with a big smile on their faces, broken down those cultural barriers, simply because that one word means I like you and I want to be your friend. When they realize you're making an effort to bridge the gap and show a genuine interest in them, they tend to respond in kind. And if you want friends, then be a friend. If you want people to open up to you, then you open up to them. And so there are a lot of things that you can do for other people to show your interest in them. There are a lot of things that you can give to people. I am an author, and the books that I write, I get for cheaper sometimes than the going rate that other people have to pay for them. But I also give a lot of those away. And every time I give one away, it costs me some money. And I've given away a lot of books, in some cases to prospects that could benefit by the particular book I was giving them. And it may be writing a note or a card or giving someone something special that says, I notice you, I care about you, I love you. I want to be with you. I want to spend time with you. And it's a whole lot easier to convert a friend than a business prospect. And you reduce that psychological distance. Read some good books on marketing. I tried my hand a couple of times in network marketing over the years, way back when, and I wasn't very good at it. But I did buy a few books on how to do it. And I ended up using the principles in the books, not how to get rich, but how to how to share the gospel. I got more good out of the books in terms of how to do evangelism properly than I did how to make money at whatever it was that I was supposed to be making a little money at. And I've also bought a few books on how to sell books. And I haven't sold millions of books, but I've sold a few thousand. There's a couple of books I've sold a few thousand each. And part of that may be that there was content in the book that was worth reading, I hope. But part of that is that no matter how good the content is, if you don't market the book the right way, no one's going to read it. And if you don't put Jesus on a pedestal, no one's going to see him in your life or in the church. I'd like to read a little something on unrecognized greatness. I picked up on this a few years ago and I've used it in sermons. And I think it makes a good point along these lines. It was the middle of the morning rush hour on Friday, January 12th, 2007, when a young man in jeans, a t-shirt, and a Washington Nationals baseball cap stepped off the metro at L'Enfant Plaza station in Washington, D.C. Standing near a wall in the plaza, he opened the case that he was carrying and removed a violin. He placed the violin case on the floor and threw in a few dollars as change, hoping to encourage passerbys to contribute more. Then he began to play the violin. The young man played feverishly for 43 minutes. In that time, 1,097 people passed by. Of those passing through L'Enfant Plaza that morning, only 7 people stopped to listen. 27 stopped or tossed money into the violin case, maybe a quarter, whatever. His earnings totaled $32.17. What made this incident so unique? How is this street musician different from others that would occasionally set up shop in similar locations? No one knew it, reports Gene Weingarten of the Washington Post. But the fiddler standing against a bare wall outside the metro in an indoor arcade at the top of the escalators was one of the finest classical musicians in the entire world, playing some of the most elegant music ever written on one of the most valuable violins ever made. The violinist was internationally acclaimed virtuoso Joshua Bell. His performance in the L'Enfant Plaza station was arranged by the Washington Post. It was an experiment in an unimpressive setting at an inconvenient time. Would people stop to appreciate beauty? Most did not. But Joshua Bell is not the only master that has gone unnoticed and underappreciated. John wrote concerning Jesus Christ, he was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. John 1:10 and 11. And I'm simply going to make this point that I don't believe marketing strategy is the most important thing that we need to focus on. I think we need to focus on living and sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. And that even living it will put the salt out of the salt shaker and the light on the bushel. But presentation does count for something. It's not the most important thing, but it does count for something in terms of whether people notice or not. And so when we do social media, when we do digital evangelism, when you put a flyer together, when you put a postcard together, when you put a website together, when you do a Facebook web page for the church, when you put materials into the hands of members who will give those materials out to other people, presentation does count for something. Should people notice this and be curious enough to follow up on it and to click a link, to accept an invitation, to seriously consider an opportunity? So read a few books on marketing. Learn how to reach an audience, how to build a platform, a regular following with information of value. Get them coming for something that will be valuable to them and then coming back for more, or opting in so that you can follow up once a week, once a month, whatever it may be. And gently touch base every once in a while so that that platform grows from 10 to 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 and so on. Create links to additional materials so that one area of interest is interlinked to another, and maybe another and another and another and another. Create a landing page on your website which enables them to request more information and gives you permission to follow up. Put links to click on everything you send out electronically, including an email signature footer that includes a website. So you send out an email to someone and you have a signature footer, SantaClaraChurchOfChrist.com. And if you put out an email that should ever go viral, if it's passed from one person to 3 more, to 5 more, to 10 more, to 20 more, to 100 more, to 1,000 more, that signature goes with it. You post a Facebook post, you can put SantaClaraChurchOfChrist.com. And every time that thing is copied, SantaClaraChurchOfChrist.com goes with it. So when your post goes viral, your link follows the chain. And in some ways, preachers have to think like a marketing executive in putting together a program of multifaceted work that will hit it from this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, and it's a multi-pronged, multi-venue approach, multi-pipeline approach that ultimately eventually leads to face-to-face encounters with earnest seekers who have given you permission to tell them the good news. Okay, so much more that could be said. I've given a few questions here. List 3 people in your circle of influence who are non-Christians and who might be interested in a conversation about spiritual things. What connection do you have with these people? Probably not in your cold market, probably in your warm market of family and friends. Someone you do business with, someone you see on a regular basis, someone at the workplace, at your place of hobby, someone you golf with, someone you do something regularly with. Have you already had spiritual conversations with these people? Why or why not? One of the lessons that I alluded to earlier that I've presented in the past has to do with reasons why we don't have conversations with people. And so that becomes integral, reasons for not evangelizing people that you know, and making evangelism fun, and how to do that so that it's not adversarial, but involves making a lot of recommendations that are mutually beneficial. You've been a good friend to me. Let me recommend something to you that I think can change your life for the better. Which tool mentioned today do you find the most helpful? Why? Do you regularly pray for lost souls and our evangelistic efforts? If not, what would it take to make this a higher priority? Next time we have a visitor at a church function, what can you do to roll out the welcome mat and make that person feel like an honored guest without coming on too strong? I think that as a preacher, you have to have an understanding with the members that if there is a visitor there, they get the VIP treatment, and I'm happy to talk with you, but let me talk with them first, so they don't slip through the cracks and get out of here without a personal conversation from me. Because there are going to be a lot of members that want to intercept you and monopolize your attention, and they just don't have their antennas up thinking about those visitors like you do. And you just have to put out the word. When Talon moves to Monterey, he has to put out the word in the first month. I'm not trying to be unfriendly to members, but I've got to give those visitors priority, because evangelism has to be in our blood, and we all have to raise those antennas. And by the way, we had 5 or 6 visitors, first-time visitors, on Sunday morning, in addition to our other visitors. And so some of those, many of them, in fact, were members of the church in other places, but nonetheless, they should get VIP treatment. And they're at the top of the totem pole in terms of your attention. And when you're doing that, you're building a team of people who get that. Then you're at least the first step of the way to building an evangelistic culture in that congregation where everybody's antenna goes up and they're looking at being friendly toward visitors. All right, questions, comments? What do you find helpful today? What would you possibly like more instruction on? What did you find totally useless? Any feedback?
Do you have a recommendation for like your #1 marketing book that would be helpful in this department?
Let me think about that. And at the office, we'll look through some evangelism books. I've got a shelf of evangelism books. And so, or at least a mini shelf. And so let's look at a few of those, just Reagan, you, and me. And then I'll make some recommendations based on, and I'll tell you the strengths and weaknesses of each one. Okay, Barbara Garten asks, could the evangelism toolbox be reprinted? And the answer is, I'm in the process of thinking about at least updating that and putting it into a new format and on evangelism training. It may not be called Evangelism Toolbox. Maybe it will, but and the problem with that is a time crunch problem. And ever since I had a heart attack 3 years ago, I've decided to put the brakes on rather, and I've learned the word no, because it's really important for me to have limits to what I'm able to do or what I try to undertake. Otherwise, I find myself trying to juggle too much. And but we will try to do that sometime in the next year or so. and see how successful we are. But even now, I sometimes find myself wearing too many hats. All right. Anything else? Okay. I trust that I've given you something to think about and to chew on. And then Reagan, Talon, and I will have a little bit of private conversation maybe tomorrow about some more aspects of this. Okay, thank you. Very important. Reagan's going to go get married, and I'm building this class around Reagan and Talon. So we're going to take the rest of September off. And then we meet the first Tuesday of October. And then the second Tuesday of October, I'm teaching a class and preaching a meeting in Sparks, Nevada. I'm even teaching a class that Tuesday afternoon. And so I'm booked. That second week of October, I've got a couple of gospel meetings in November. So there's at least one Tuesday where I don't think I'm going to be available in November. So we're kind of hit and miss going forward, but stay tuned for emails. And the next class for this will be the first Tuesday of October. And Reagan will come back with a whole lot more marriage experience than he has now. And he will be in a position to have a point of reference he doesn't have right now. So that'll be fun. All right. Everybody have a good rest of your day, good rest of your week. And Lord willing, we'll see you for the next class.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, take care.
Mike.